Good morning, my little chickadees. We are going to be going over the poem Nothing Gold Can Stay by Robert Frost. Before we get into the poem analysis, let's go ahead and talk about who Robert Frost is. Robert Frost was born in San Francisco in 1874. He won 4 Pulitzer Prizes for his writing. Nothing Gold Can Stay was written in 1923 and was published in a New Hampshire collection, and that earned Mr. Frost his first Pulitzer Prize. The poem is mentioned in The Outsiders. While hiding in the church, Ponyboy quotes the poem to Johnny. So I know some of you guys have read part of The Outsiders as part of Power Up. I'm not sure if that part was in that book or not. Okay, so here we go. Here's our first read. I'll do the first read, and then I'm not going to do second or third read because you guys should have done that already. Nothing Gold Can Stay by Robert Frost. Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. The leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down today, nothing gold can stay. So let's see. There might be some words here that you don't understand. So hue. Hue might be a word that you don't know. Hue means like a color or shade, like of something. Like there's different hues of purple. Subsides might be a word we don't know. That means become less intense. Eden, right here, this isn't a person. What they're referring to is the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden was supposed to be a really peaceful paradise that didn't last too long. And maybe we don't know what the word dawn means. Dawn is like the morning, or like in the morning, that's dawn. Okay, let's go ahead and let's look at the questions. So, what do you think the title means? Nothing gold can stay. Well, to me, I think the title means that nothing lasts forever. Why do I think that? Well, nothing gold. Gold is like, if you think about it, especially back when he wrote this poem, gold is could be like a form of currency, something valuable, and if he is thinking of it in the form of currency such as money, you can't just hoard money. You have to spend it on stuff such as food, housing, clothing. So, what's the situation? What situation is described? So, what they're talking about, like what's going on in the poem, in other words. Personally, I think the poem is describing how life and nature can change. And what's your first impressions of the poem? My first impression of the poem is that of growing up, right? You start young and then time passes and you change. Number 3, there's no right or wrong answer to number 3. It's totally up. What are your first impressions of it? Do you like it? Do you not like it? That kind of stuff. Okay, now we're on our second close read. So you guys should have read it closely. So what's the message of the poem? So I think the message of the poem is that change is inevitable. Inevitable means it's going to happen. There's nothing that you could do to stop it. What word choices bring Frost's poem to life? So think show, not tell, figurative language. So these are some of them that I think bring Frost's poem to life. Only so an hour, leaf subsides to leaf, grief, nothing gold can stay. So what's the rhyme scheme of the poem? Rhyme scheme is the pattern of rhyme that comes at the end of each line or verse of poetry. And this one is a couplet. A couplet is a poem where the last part of the lines rhyme. So some examples are leaf and grief of this poem. These are some examples, not just examples in general. Leaf and grief, day and stay, flower and hour. So it says, find examples of alliteration in this poem. Alliteration is when the same letter sound happens at the beginning and the end of connecting words. So here's some of the ones. So an example for line 1 would be green, gold. From line 2, we see her hardest hue hold. Line 7, dawn, down, day. Now, these might have been kind of hard for you, and that's okay. You know, we're just practicing and learning, so don't worry if you don't understand it at first. Okay, so now we're looking at metaphors and the meaning of the metaphors. And I'm going to give us a definition of metaphor just in case you guys forgot. Remember, a metaphor is a figure of speech that makes a comparison between two things that are unrelated but share some common characteristics. So an example is, my brother is a black sheep of the family. Well, he's not a sheep, but what that's saying is that he's, you know, the odd person. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's look at our first metaphor that Mr. Frost used. Nature's first green is gold. I think the meaning is that gold is valuable and the first growth of spring is valuable to nature and humans. So why is the first green valuable? Well, let's say we live in a place where it snows, like up in Canada or Washington. And if we're an animal, you know, we've either been hibernating or walking around trying to find food. And when we see that first green, we can eat it, but it also tells us that spring and summer is coming and that, you know, it's not going to be cold anymore. Our second metaphor is her hardest hue to hold. I think that means new spring growth doesn't last long, right? Because we're talking about her first green, which is new spring or spring flowers, and it's hard to hold, so that means it doesn't last long. Her early leaves a flower, but only so an hour. Well, her early leaves a flower, so time passes quickly because the leaf is turning into a flower, but it only lasts an hour, so things change fast. What's the theme of Nothing Gold Can Stay? How does Frost convey his message in the poem? So I think the theme of Nothing Gold Can Stay is that change is inevitable. Remember, inevitable means it's going to happen no matter what we do. We can't stop it. Frost conveys his message that nothing lasts forever by providing examples of elements of nature that change. Frost writes, her early leaves a flower, but only so an hour. The title of the poem, Nothing Gold Can Stay, is perhaps the best way that Frost conveys his message. The title says it all, nothing lasts forever. Now remember, when you guys are analyzing it, that's usually the last question, and by it I mean the poems. You want to use the information that you collected in your reading. So every time you answer a question that I put out here, it's, you know, setting you up for you able to write your analysis of your last question. Okay, I hope this helped you out, and I hope you like this poem. Have a good day.